welcome to the Fantasy Book of the Month podcast for the month of June, July, we'll see. This is our first episode. Happy to be here. We got a great crew. We have Katie, Daniel, Peter, and Rachel, and we're going to sort of take it easy this time, guys. What do you think?
Oh,
whoa.
We were so serious otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am operating at 110%.
I'm going to take this tie off. Finally. Thank goodness.
Yeah. No need for that. No need for that, Daniel.
I am totally wearing pants.
I am also totally wearing pants.
You guys are? I'm not.
It's a full pants podcast is what we're saying. All the imagery deserved.
That would have been a much better name for this podcast, the Full Pants Podcast.
It's not too late.
You're right. We haven't technically started yet. So hi guys, how are you doing? This is most of your guys' first podcast, huh?
Yes.
No, but I'm still doing okay.
Yeah, no, not you, Daniel. You're the expert here.
I am the old veteran, yes.
So why don't you each introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself, and this is a fantasy podcast, so tell us what you think about fantasy and what piqued your interest. So
why don't we start at the top?
Yeah. So Katie.
All right. My name is Katie. I am from Minnesota, and I don't have an accent. Just pointing that out.
I thought we determined that you definitely do.
No.
No, determined that I definitely do, apparently.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Say milk.
Milk.
Oh.
All right. So Katie, you're from Minnesota.
Yes, I'm from Minnesota. I love fantasy books. I've started reading them when I was in elementary school.
So who's your favorite author?
Well, my favorite author currently, Robert Jordan, because I've been reading a lot of the Wheel of Time series.
That's a solid classic.
I actually haven't, feel free to chime in, guys, but I actually haven't read Wheel of Time yet.
I think I'm 3 times all the way through.
Oh, wow.
On everything that's Robert Jordan. I think I'm only 1 time through on the last Sanderson book.
Holy crap.
I think I've read everything except the last book, maybe the last 2. I'm of the firm opinion that one day the owners of the estate are going to authorize an abridged version, and it will be objectively better than the original.
I think that's going to be called the Wheel of Time TV show, available soon on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Is that in the works?
It is. It's in pre-production right now. I don't think they've announced any cast yet, but Sanderson's been out there talking about
braid tugging.
Wheel of Time, King Killer, Lord of the Rings, His Dark Materials. They're all in the production right now.
Thanks, Game of Thrones.
Well, you know what else, though? Jeff Bezos is a huge nerd.
Is he?
Yeah. He loves Lord of the Rings. He's a big nerd, and so that's why he wanted to make the Lord of the Rings shows. I read that somewhere. So, makes sense, honestly. So,
well, if you read it, it must be true.
Yeah, of course. Katie, do you have anything else you want to add real quick? Anything else you want people to know about you? Social security number?
Yeah, 867-5309.
It's a very short.
You're missing a couple.
I guess Daniel.
It took me a minute, but Katie, I got that, Katie.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you.
Wait a minute.
I love you and everything.
860.
Oh, wait, no.
It would help maybe if she went 909.
867-5309.
Oh, shit.
I thought you were doing the boobies thing.
That is eerily similar to my actual phone number. I don't like you doxing me like that on the internet.
It's supposed to be a secret.
I think people simply do not give out that phone address. I mean, companies don't give out that phone number anymore.
Yeah, they don't.
For that reason. Yeah.
It used to be a real person's number. That's why they can't use it in real people's number anymore in TV shows and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's why they're all 5555.
5555.
How is it that there's no company that just wants to buy that phone number though?
Well, because I think they're already held in reserve by Hollywood or something like that.
Fair. All right, so Daniel, why don't you tell us a little bit really quick about who you are and what you're doing here?
My name is Dan Evanson. I am amateur podcaster, amateur author, amateur a lot of things. I have written a lot of fantasy book reviews on my blog. I guess my personal favorite author is probably Patrick Rothfuss. I think I really am in love with those books, those 2 books that he wrote.
Those 2 books.
Yeah, and the 3rd book that is just ephemera that may someday exist. I hope.
Vaporware.
The novella too.
Yeah. I'm okay with that novella.
Oh, hot take. So, so I haven't read that one yet. So I've read the first 2 novels. Have you guys all read?
I've read the first 2.
Yeah,
I've read
I haven't read either of them, but I think I own the first one.
You got to read Name of the Wind. Oh my God, it's beautiful.
It's on
it's
the
a great
pile.
The more we talk it up, the less impactful it might be.
Yeah,
Let's just let her trip over it.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I haven't read the novella yet, but I'm holding off for a little while on that one. So Daniel, you're an amateur, all these things. What are you a professional?
Professional, I'm a electronic engineer. Specifically, I work on fire alarms.
See, that's pretty cool.
Sometimes it's very cool. Most of the time, it's very boring. So it leaves me with a lot of time to be amateur. 100 things. Amateur 3D printer, amateur shelf constructor, cat owner.
Well, I've seen your 3D printer setup, and I'm jealous.
Can you really be an amateur cat owner?
I'm just not ready to go pro yet, you know.
Oh, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I would say the cat owns the human.
Right.
Well, so I figured he meant the cat was the amateur.
No, she's a professional at owning me, and I'm wrapped around her little claw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a serious discussion with my wife this week about whether our cat needs her own Instagram account. So that's the kind of life I'm living.
Hey, my cats both have it. They have an Instagram account together, so I highly recommend it.
So Dan, can you tell me why a fire alarm would make a one long beep at a very long, no reason?
How often does it do it?
It did it once and scared the crap out of me.
It did one very long beep and then never did it again?
Yep.
Oh, that's a ghost. You got a ghost.
It was like
That's a professional opinion right there.
It was 3 a.m, and then I heard it, and I was like halfway out my door by the time I realized, what the hell am I doing?
I love this idea of this professional fire alarm guy just saying, oh, nope, it's a ghost. That's what it is. I love that.
I believe it. The place I lived at was sketchy as hell.
That might be the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. A lot of customer service calls just ended with ghost. Sorry, ghost.
Who are you going to call? Not me. Hang up.
Do you get a lot of those, Dan?
Yep. Got a whole folder here. It's my very own personal
sorry.
X-Files.
No, I mean, do you get a lot of people saying, oh, you work on fire alarms. Can you solve this problem for me?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's right up there with, oh, you work with computers.
Ah, yes.
Then I need to fix their computer. Instead, I need to go to their house and track down the carbon monoxide detector they installed behind a bookshelf, 20 years ago, and now it's beeping at them and they can't.
Okay, so I guess I'll go. You guys know me. I'm Nick. Obviously, I'm the other podcast from TooManyThoughtsMedia.com here. And, I'm actually just excited to be talking with you guys about something a little more, my speed. I love fantasy, been reading pretty much nonstop since I learned how to read. And, the other shows I do, while they're fun, I'm not necessarily a huge movie guy. So I'm just really pumped to actually talk about something that I really care about.
Yes.
So who's
You're our leader, Nick. Lead.
who's your favorite author, Nick?
My favorite author currently, My go-to guy is Brandon Sanderson. That guy's he's a machine. Seriously, I mean, I love the Game of Thrones books. I love The Name of the Wind, but again, both of those guys, just nothing against them, because I mean, I can imagine being a writer is very stressful and time-consuming, and but Sanderson just pumps out like 1,000-page books that are brilliant every year. And so, from the reader's point of view, I think he's solid. And I'm hoping eventually to get into Robert Jordan, and because I know that's sort of one of Sanderson's claims to fame is that he finished that series out.
Wait for the abridged series.
Are you talking like Dragon Ball Z abridged, where we're like...
Oh my god.
Or Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged? No. Although those are hilarious.
I would love if they made a version like that.
I mean, it does sort of exist. There are the old, I don't know, this is dating me, but there are old the Ism stories. I don't know if you guys know are aware of those. They are like basically Dragon Ball Z abridged, but for Wheel of Time. I think they only cover like the first 8 books or something, because that's when they I think it was the Ism. I'd have to find them. I'm sure I have them saved somewhere. But basically, they were some guy from the Wheel of Time video game chat room.
Oh my God!
Redid those. That is how far back I go.
I remember when that game was coming out. No, it never published, did it?
I think it did. It was not well received. Although it was, I remember playing it, and it's kind of cool, but it was not the reason why I was. It was mostly I was in those message boards because they were the only Wheel of Time message boards at the time, which was like 2001.
Holy crap!
I was 3 years old.
Okay, I quit this podcast.
Yeah, I don't even want to tell you, but I'll tell you.
Okay,
anyways.
I'm close to your age.
I was learning how to count money in school. I was learning the difference between a nickel and a dime in 2001.
Me and Nick, the very young ones.
Yeah. I am so sorry, Daniel.
That's okay. I have a lawn you can get off of. So.
Holy shit! All right. Hey, Peter.
What's up?
Tell us your fantastical story.
My fantastical story begins with me. I'm Peter Schaefer. I am a game designer and writer. I've done work for White Wolf on a number of their game lines, and I've worked on D&D. And I have loved fantasy and science fiction for all my life. One of my early memories is crying in my mother's arms because Gandalf was dead.
That is like strangely beautiful.
She had to reassure me without spoiling anything, and I think she did a good job.
That's a fine line.
Yeah.
You have a super mom.
Oh, she was pretty great.
Wow.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
That's incredible. So yeah, who's your favorite author currently? What are you reading? I guess that's 2 questions. That's true. I mean, what I'm just finishing up reading now is a role-playing game book called Blades in the Dark, which I'm reading for research and work reference. But I just finished the series that I'm going to talk about today, which was Land Fit for Heroes by Richard K. Morgan. I like Richard K. Morgan a lot, but I wouldn't call him a favorite. I think the name that I always go to when I try to think of a favorite author, despite it not being fantasy in this case, is Isaac Asimov.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I don't think I know who that is, but I'm gonna have to look into it more.
I'm sorry, Isaac Asimov?
Yeah.
Isaac Asimov.
I'm very sheltered.
You're a bad person.
Yeah.
And you deserve to feel bad.
I have a very important question.
iRobot and the Foundation series.
Oh, okay. I know these things. So I'm gonna come out and say it really quick though. I love fantasy, but like I'm not as into sci-fi. I'm just gonna say it. You can hate me for it. That's fine. I'll take all the arrows.
We'll change this
We're on
name
the
of this
same
podcast to change my mind.
Change my mind.
It's okay. I didn't hear it, so I'll never know.
Wait, so Rachel, you had a question?
Yes. Do you dream of electric sheep?
No, I don't, but I have read it.
I was trying to figure out if you're an android. Damn it.
Well, you really need to get up close with the Voight Kampf test and aim the little thing at my eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can't do this over the computer. It's just we'll trick you every time. I mean they'll trick you every time.
How do you know I'm not there?
How do you know he's not the computer?
Oh, dang.
Okay, well you could be here somewhere, and now I'm scared.
I traveled across country in 2 seconds.
This is Rachel. She hides in your closet.
Speaking of, let's have Rachel introduce herself from inside your closet.
Hello, I am Rachel. I am apparently the youngest in this group. I am currently a graduate student, so I gotta have no time and no money.
Love it.
Graduate student studying.
Human factor psychology.
Right. That's right.
I think I asked you this last time, but what does that mean?
Okay, so basically, I make humans and computers work well together.
So you and Peter should get along great.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean,
I hope that lives forever.
Yeah, I love
We're
this
800
idea.
episodes in, and Peter's still.
yeah.
What are you reading right now? Who's your favorite author? What are you into?
My favorite author would probably be, again, Sanderson, mainly because I love the Stormlight Archives to death. So pray for me.
Yeah, that series not getting finished until like 2043, I think.
Hey, that's okay. This is honestly one of the first times in my life where I'm into a series like early. You know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an exciting thing. I don't know if you guys have probably gone through that where, I mean, like.
Well, I think when I started reading The Wheel of Time, there were maybe 7 or 8 books.
See, that's why I started it like last year, because I knew that I could just read them all in a row and just binge it, basically.
Well, I didn't know how long it was going to not end at the time.
Yeah. I remember my mom started me on that series, and neither of us knew it was a series. So,
Yeah.
you know, she's like, oh, this book is so great. And when I finished it, and I went to the library and found, 8 more books. And she was like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I thought it was a great trilogy, and then they just kept going.
Great trilogy followed by what? 11 more books?
Not.
How many are there total?
Did it go to 14? I don't know.
There's 14.
Okay, then yes.
That's wild.
Then there's also the prequel.
Oh, God.
Don't forget.
Was it New
That one's
Spring?
nice and New Spring, nice and short.
That's incredible. God. Well, awesome. So, I mean, yeah. So this podcast, we're going to be trying to come together every month and just sort of recommend a book we read this month to you guys. So if you're the type of person who's just into fantasy, always looking for something new to read, or just likes, listening to people talk about it, this is the show for you. So, hopefully this episode's going to come out in June. Worst case, it's going to be a July episode, and then from then on, we should know where we stand. So, I messaged all of you guys. None of us knew each other before this. And I messaged you guys all maybe 2 months ago on Reddit.
Yes.
On r/fantasy. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Fantasy Writers, wasn't it?
Fantasy. I did both. I
Might have been
wasn't sure.
both.
So r/fantasy and r/fantasy writers, and you guys were the real troopers who stuck with it for the past couple months. So, this is pretty exciting to actually put it all together. So,
Well, thank you for assembling us.
Avengers assemble. So, does anyone want to begin and just tell us about the book they read this month? And
I think we should start from the bottom this time.
Oh, I love it.
Sure.
All right, I'll start.
Begin.
All right, so I read Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman because I wanted to watch the TV show. And I'm currently 3 episodes into that TV show. I will talk about that later.
I think I'm also 3 episodes in.
Yes. This book is about what would happen if a satanic nun misplaces the Antichrist.
Whoa. That's loaded.
Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett.
Yeah. And Sir Terry Pratchett, Discworld series, very funny, very British. And then Neil Gaiman, American Gods, Sandman, all those great novels. And Coraline, which I was pleased to learn about, because that movie freaked me out as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Freaked me out as an adult.
The button eyes are really weird.
Yes.
Basically, this is just a feel-good story about the end of the world.
A feel-good story?
It is really a feel-good story.
Really?
It really is.
I think I stole it from somebody on Twitter. I don't remember. I think it was either Peter or Daniel.
Oh, you thief.
Yes.
I take no credit for anything. Ever.
So, that's interesting. So, how let me ask you, like, how well do those two write together? Because, I mean, we all know, obviously, those are two very incredible, very famous writers. Do both of their, like, voices really come out in this book?
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't know. I actually haven't read anything by either of them.
Oh, man.
Which is funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, the humor was very British. That's all I can tell you, because as somebody who is obviously very American, I didn't get some of the jokes. Thank God for the footnotes that were just like, for the American, this is what this is, idiot. I'm like, okay, thank you.
That's awesome. They actually had footnotes in there like that?
Yep.
That's brilliant.
Has anyone read the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Suzanne and Clark?
Yes.
It's also on my pile, and I've watched the miniseries.
Yeah, I watched the show.
Series?
Yes.
Huh. How was it?
It's pretty
It was
good.
actually really good.
Okay, good to know.
But it's like that kind of. The book has that kind of. They both have like the footnotes and stuff like that.
You're right. I find them very, very different, however. I mean, they're both set in Britain or a Britain, but the
tone, the tone.
Well, I mean, the tone's enormously different. I mean, Susanna Clark's footnotes are there to explain a little bit of the world building to the reader, whereas it feels to me like the Good Omens footnotes are there just for another opportunity to snark, which is great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yeah.
Which is awesome. Awesome book. Highly recommend it.
I love it.
My girlfriend's favorite author is Terry Pratchett, and I'll be honest, I didn't finish, but I started reading more. And, I can get a feel for both of their tones. Terry Pratchett is probably a lot more... I mean, I would say Terry Pratchett appears to be like Neil Gaiman if Neil Gaiman was taking shrooms. He's a little more out there.
Well, we can't say that Neil Gaiman wasn't taking shrooms while writing this.
Okay, so maybe more shrooms? I don't know.
Who can say? Rachel, I have a question. Does it feel like 2 people wrote the book, or does it feel unified?
Not at all. It felt very unified in my very unofficial opinion. I listened to the audiobook, so that was just like felt like one flow of the story.
I had the same opinion on reading it. That just feels very much like it has a singular voice.
So let me ask you guys too, because this is a question I want all of us to answer at some point. Is like, how does this fit into the greater genre of fantasy in general?
I think it's a great example of how you do comedy in fantasy and how you can make things more funny and light instead of it is dark and it is grimdark. Everyone is dead.
That is sort of like a thing, like a trend now, I suppose. Probably because of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting, too, because that book covers the kind of, and I don't intend this to be offensive, but it might be, but the Christian mythology in a way that most fantasy books do not cover. You know, they tend to stay in the more accepted mythologies.
Right. They tend to go polytheistic and act more like, well, just try not to act like anything that looks too Christian.
Yeah, avoid the politics of it all. But that book dives headlong into the politics of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what it's about.
I actually didn't realize that Metatron was actually like a Christian figure until I read this book, but because I thought it was just a made up figure in his Dark Materials series.
Oh.
And, I don't know. I was not a smart child.
Well, you have homework then. You have to go watch the fantastic Kevin Smith movie
Dogma.
featuring Alan Rickman as the Metatron. He's fantastic.
I've seen that. That's a freaking awesome movie. God, I haven't seen that in years. I haven't even thought about that movie in years.
I have never heard of this movie.
Oh, wow.
I think of it anytime I hear the word Metatron.
Oh, I need to watch that
Think
again.
of Supernatural.
Supernatural?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
There's
was,
another great Metatron. Metatron is played by one of the nerds from those Nerds movies. Booger. I think his name is Booger.
What, from like Revenge of the Nerds?
Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah, the 80s movies that I'm sure you were all... sorry, I'm making references that predate all of you again.
No, it's all right. My dad showed
No,
me
not
those
me.
movies.
Oh, that's right. I've one ally.
That's right.
Your dad showed you all those movies. Great.
No, good movies though. All right, so ultimately though, recommend.
Yeah, I didn't really laugh out loud, mainly because I was listening to it at work. And that's probably because my work is I walk around in a circle for 8 hours. Yay.
What kind of job do you have?
Underpaid security.
Oh.
Oh.
I thought I had something to do with psychology, but that's just what you're studying, not what you do. Okay.
I still need to make money somehow.
Did they give you a taser?
No, I have a walkie-talkie that I'm really not allowed to use.
The ultimate weapon of defense, tattling.
God, they could at least give you like a baton. Jeez.
They would have to train us for that.
Yeah, I guess so. That's not in the college budget. All right, cool. So, I'm actually that book sounds super interesting because obviously Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett are both just incredible writers. So, I've been seeing that one on shelves at every bookstore right up front when you walk in. So,
when I was reading it or listening to it, I kept picturing David Tennant and how he would be Crowley, and I was totally wrong on how he would portray it.
Yeah.
you know, I've been needing a new show to watch. Maybe I'll check that out.
It's 6 episodes, about an hour each.
Oh, that's a breeze.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to read the book, at least go check out the Amazon show, guys.
Non-sponsored.
I
Non-sponsored.
was just gonna say, can we get sponsored by Amazon now?
That's the goal, right?
Right. I think it's 17 more mentions within the hour, and then we get automatically sponsored.
I mean, if we mention Audible, I think that counts too, right?
Oh yeah.
They're owned by the same company, so...
Right.
So, listen to Good Omens on Audible or check it out on Amazon Prime and hey, Jeff Bezos, send me a car.
But yeah, and buy it on Kindle. Nope.
Right.
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's cheap on Kindle. Pretty sure it's cheap on Kindle anyways.
Pick it up used in a bookstore.
What are you talking about?
No, that doesn't.
Sorry, Peter. Amazon just asked us to remove you from the podcast.
Okay, bye.
Overlord Bezos said you are no longer allowed.
His programming didn't realize that he can't do bookstores.
Well, there are Amazon bookstores now.
There are?
Yeah, it is the weirdest thing.
Well, you're in
Amazon.
Seattle,
Why?
right?
I'm in Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, so you get all the fun gadgets first.
Fun, right? Gadgets, a brick and mortar store with books on display where you can purchase them with money.
Yeah,
This
but I
is
figure
up to
there are
date.
robots selling them, right?
Peter, do you work there?
I do not work there. Maybe some of the other robots work there. I mean, some of the robots work there, not other.
Just a little Freudian slip.
Yes.
Yes. You live in Seattle, where I live in Hickville. Or not really Hickville, but in the...
I am kind of in the center of certain things.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
All right, so Peter, you made mention earlier to the book that you read. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
I read a trilogy by Richard K. Morgan. Richard K. Morgan is best known, I think, for Altered Carbon, which was not too long ago a series on Netflix, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which was moderately faithful to the book. I mean, it changed large chunks that worked better on screen, but so it has a TV presence now. The book is a fantastic, cyber noir mystery thriller, but that's what he's best known for. What I read was the trilogy called A Land Fit for Heroes, which I think has got to be an ironic title because all three of the characters in it are at best anti-heroes.
And at worst?
At worst, at worst, assholes or monsters, depending on the one. And I think all of them end up being heroic, but none of them would call themselves a hero. Probably just the opposite, if anything. So I feel like that series title has got to be considered ironic. The first book is The Steel Remains. I have to admit, I had a little trouble getting into this book. Picking it up this time was the second time that I picked it up to read. The first time couldn't say how far, maybe halfway, and I just kind of petered out. Yeah. You can put in a nice badum-tish, right?
We're going to need a soundboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add it in post.
But
Here, do all the sounds.
Oh, he is a robot. Confirmed.
I don't know what that was.
It sounded like a Pokemon.
No, Pokemon say names.
Well, so one of the things that I found hard about the book when I first tried to read it was that it felt like it was dropping a lot of names of historical aspects of the setting or peoples that I wasn't familiar with, and it wasn't taking time to explain them. On my second read through, either because I already had a little bit of familiarity or maybe it's just a change in myself, but I found that more appealing. I think as I've aged, I've grown less patient for fantasy books that want to tell me a dozen things about their special fantasy nations and races and how they all relate. And I am much more patient with picking that up over 100 pages, learning it as it becomes relevant or as the characters observe aspects of it. So I think I was probably more patient with the book this time, and I got to learn about just a bunch of different things, how there used to be these people from a different world who were there who had some kind of strange advanced technology, but they'd left, leaving political environment very different than when they arrived, and there had been a war within the last decade or so, and at least two of our main characters are veterans of that war and now living kind of I used to be a hero and now I don't know what to do with myself life, and I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of first, actually, this is definitely more of a sci-fi kind of book than a traditional fantasy, correct?
Well, no, actually. I mean, it sounds like it when I said, what did I say?
The advanced
Aliens.
technology.
Yeah, except it doesn't seem like advanced technology at first. It's only a book and a half in or so when they give you more detail about how the people who wielded it treated it as technology. They considered it something you could study and learn and improve. But to everyone else in the world, and that includes us, it's basically magic.
Is it kind of like Zelda's, like, half sci-fi, like, half fantasy kind of thing? And
I couldn't say if it's exactly... I couldn't say how closely it resembles that. It's... Just couldn't say. I couldn't relate it.
Maybe a Final Fantasy vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhat in parts. I mean, basically the people who had this technology that is mostly magic are all gone. And so what remains is completely magical to the people who are still there. And that includes some kind of entities that you and I might consider an AI, but I don't think is actually an AI. It's certainly not called an AI, but they used to not pilot warships exactly, but guide huge chunks of machinery in this regard. And now they're disconnected from everything, and they're going a little crazy, and they don't have much to do except talk to people. For example.
What I wanted to say earlier to your point about following these characters they used to be heroes, but now they don't know what to do with their lives, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like so often we follow like a young protagonist who is sort of going on their first adventure, and the mistakes they make are often, it's like bravery and foolishness, and they don't have the experience behind them. And I always think it's so interesting to read from an older person's point of view. Yeah.
And it definitely was in this case. And one of the things that I enjoy reading in general is competent heroes. So, these characters were all very good at the things that they knew how to do. In most cases, they were, like I said, veterans, so they were very good at fighting. But also to reach out to other genres, Jack Reacher, which is a thriller series, is a very competent detective sort of person. Mm-hmm. Or science fiction, Honor Harrington is an exceedingly competent starship captain. I enjoy competent characters, and these characters accomplish that very well. Another book in the similar vein of picking up with characters, 10 or 20 years past their prime would be Kings of the Wild.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention that. It's great.
Excellent. Yeah.
Is that spelled with a Y?
Correct.
Yeah. It's by Nicholas Ames.
I had that recommended to me as well.
Excellent. Well, here's another recommendation for that one.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I wanted to play D&D immediately afterwards.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed that book very, very much. One of the things that I loved about it was that the main character, like all the characters had their special traits, their named weapons or whatnot, but the main character, his named weapon of legacy was a shield, which is just, it says so much about his character, and it's so unusual in fantasy. Everyone has the named sword that can cleave through anything, but he was about protecting people.
He was the tank.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. So, let me think here. Does anyone else have any other questions?
So, Peter, what was the name of this book again? The one you're actually reviewing.
The first book in the trilogy is called The Steel Remains. The second is The Cold Commands. The third is The Dark Defiles. Each of those, you might notice, is a play on words where it's using both a verb and a noun in the same word. But yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So, Nick, what did you read this?
Yeah, so I originally started reading a very long book and quickly realized I wasn't going to finish in time, so I switched to a shorter novel. So it's called The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, and this too follows older protagonists. The main two characters are an elderly couple, pretty much at this point, certainly closing into the ends of their lives, and it's sort of set in like a post sort of King Arthur England sort of setting, and it follows these characters who decide, we should go see our son. We should go. He'll welcome us to their village. But the weird thing going on here, and this book is a little difficult to follow at times, because of this. There's this weird sort of magical curse in all of the land that's causing everybody to essentially forget things or not remember things correctly. So there's a lot of confusion from the point of view of the characters, and it sort of leads to the reader being a little confused, but it works.
Is it an unreliable narrator situation?
Almost, yeah, except it's very obvious. It's like for example, if you're reading, The Catcher in the Rye, with Holden Caulfield as an unreliable narrator, that's what I always go to when I think of unreliable narrators.
I think of King Killer.
Yeah, there's an argument for that for sure. But with that, it's actually pretty convincing. You don't always necessarily realize you're being lied to, or things are, With this, they'll say something at the beginning, and later they'll completely say something that is like I'll try to give you an example without obviously spoiling anything. At the beginning, they're saying, "Oh, we haven't seen our son in so many years. I wonder if he'll, we should go see him, but he won't know we're coming," kind of thing. And then later, it just changes to, "Oh, our son is waiting for us. He really wants to see us," and they haven't spoken to him. He has no clue. So, it goes from things being, just thoughts or ideas to facts suddenly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very jarring.
I mean, is it kind of like a commentary on, dementia, or like because they're older characters, kind of elderly characters?
So, I mean, it's not just them though; it's everybody. I think the book is a lot more a commentary on our lives being fleeting, and there's a lot of metaphor in the book about how things die and are buried and forgotten, and they talk about villages that a long time ago this village was a fortress, and now there are monks living in it, and they don't even remember what these buildings once were, kind of thing. So
yeah,
there's a lot of talk about how, and they also talk about people die and they're buried in the ground, and that ground is brings new life, but people forget that there's all of these dead things in the ground, kind of thing. So it seems to be some sort of commentary on that. But it has, it has everything you'd expect out of a fantasy novel. It has a dragon, it has a knight, it has, sort of has a princess that they need to go save or whatever. And it does sort of, tick those boxes, but it's just definitely not a typical fantasy book, I would say.
Yeah. That author I actually read one of his other books for college. He wrote Never Let Me Go, if anyone heard of that.
I haven't, but yeah, that's actually one kind of thing I did want to say about this book is this is a Washington Post gave it, a bunch of credit, and it won a bunch of prizes. It almost feels like one of those sort of New York Times bestseller novels rather than a fantasy book, and I enjoyed reading it, and I would recommend it, but at the same time, I tend to really like those sort of just quick and dirty fantasy, not... I don't even necessarily care if the fantasy book is trying to say something. I mean, it's always better if it is. But, you know, I'm okay with just, you know, listening to or reading just some sort of, you know, just warriors going out and fighting goblins kind of thing. I'm fine with that.
Sure. Well, every book has a message, even if it's not trying to say something.
That's fair. It's a good point.
So it reads like literary fiction. Was it a fun read? Did you enjoy reading it, or did it leave you sort of melancholy at the end?
Definitely left me thinking at the end. I don't want to spoil the ending in any way of, you know, whether it's happy or sad or anything like that. But it definitely it you have to work to read it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Working.
Yeah.
So, but it's a quick read. It's only 300 pages, and it does go pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, I can enjoy books like that, but I definitely have to be kind of in the mood. I'm glad you let us know that before I got started, and didn't ruin my day reading it or something.
I mean, and it is kind of cool because it's supposed to be set after, you know, years after King Arthur has died, and some of these older characters. There's also like a knight who he's definitely much older at this point, but he was a knight of King Arthur, and
like the Round Table, like one of the Round Table.
I think he was technically King Arthur's nephew, is what he says.
Mm.
So, but you know, it's sort of. I thought it was interesting to sort of have that backdrop that, like, you know, everybody knows the story vaguely of King Arthur, and to sort of pick up on that and create this new world, it was pretty interesting, I will say.
There's so many different interpretations of King Arthur. You have like there was recently like a kids movie, The Kid Who Would Be King, and all that stuff, and then you have all of Fate.
Oh yeah.
True.
Freaking Fate. You have Fate that is just like, what?
Yeah, you
What
can't
is this?
unpick that story.
Although those types of stories generally you can't follow at all anyways.
Why does Nero and King Arthur look the exact same?
Play the video game to find out.
No, play the phone game.
Oh God. there's my old man rearing up again.
All right, so I suppose, Daniel, it's your turn to sort of tell us about your book, huh?
Sure. So I read a book called Uncanny Collateral, written by Brian McClellan.
I love that author.
Yeah, Brian is best known for his Powder Mage books. I think there's 6 of them now, along with a bunch of short stories and novellas. This one, Uncanny Collateral, I wrecked the internet trying to figure out if it was a novel or a novella. It's pretty short. I think it does, like, it's kind of right at the shallow end of novel. It's urban fantasy, and it follows a half ogre named Alec, who is kind of like a repo man for the supernatural world that is kind of, you know, layered underneath our normal mundane world. And he has been tasked with recovering souls for death because some idiot has gone out and stolen a bunch of souls from death. Which everyone, their immediate reaction to this is like, well, that is the dumbest thing anyone's ever heard of doing. So Alec has to run around and reclaim these souls. It reads pretty good. I mean, Brian McClellan, I have enjoyed all the Power Mage books. I think the later half of that series is really, really excellent. Do
you mean the second trilogy?
Yeah, the second trilogy, the one that deals with Ben Stike and the Rough Riders or whatever they're called.
Flora is the main character, right?
Well, no, I think really Ben is the main character of those books. At least in the first 2. I think you're right. The kind of last of the trilogy deals a lot more with her.
I only know her because I only read the first trilogy. I haven't gotten to the second trilogy yet. Yeah,
Ben Stike is a new character that's introduced in the first novel. Like, the first novel is almost entirely about him. Mm-hmm. And there's a third POV character that's a spy named Michael or Michelle or something like that. Yeah. But but yeah, he brings a lot of the same sensibilities from that series to this one. He's got really great dialogue, and even though it's a modern setting, one of the great things about the Power Mage stories is how there's all this kind of fantastic stuff with mages and guns exploding everywhere, but he'll coach it in these it's kind of Victorian modern settings where modern day life is still going on around it. And it's the same here where one of the things that happens is Alec has to raid a meth house, only the meth house is run by imps who are all like your kind of standard meth head, except they're magical imps. So it's funny and
I don't get the difference.
Engaging. Yeah, I mean, ultimately there's not a lot of difference between a meth head and an imp. It turns out that's probably how most humans get through their day without going insane. It's just like, oh, that's not a magical creature. That's just someone strung out on methamphetamines.
So what I appreciated about the Power Mage was the detective character. I really loved him and like how he's just like an old man in this setting. Is there like a character or like a feeling in that book?
So this is Uncanny Collateral is kind of like a detective story, but it's really more like the hard-boiled kind of detective story where he's not really investigating so much as he's punching his way to clues. He's like, oh, there's a guy over here that might know something, and he doesn't like scout the place out. He just kicks the door in and starts hitting people until someone tells him something interesting.
This sounds like an incredibly like action-packed little book.
It does. He starts off in more or less an action scene, and he really just hits the pedal and does not stop. I think the short length actually is. Usually I prefer like really long, complicated fantasy novels, but this one, he packs it in so tight that I really didn't notice how short it was.
It feels like it's gonna be it'd be like a really fun movie or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And he does like add some hooks at the end to kind of, lay the groundwork for future novels and stuff. But this one's pretty self-contained, and I really liked it a lot.
Have you read the Harry Dresden books?
I have.
So how would you compare the feel?
I thought about that as I was writing up my review, and because obviously like Harry Dresden is the urban fantasy sort of benchmark. And I think it does line up a lot with the earlier Harry Dresden, where not a lot of the sort of fantastic rules have been well established, and so it feels like there's a lot of open space in the book for things to be added in, and it doesn't lean hard on the supernatural aspects. It feels very grounded in the mundane world. Like all the difficulties that Alec has to deal with are things that I would totally assume, a normal detective or police officer would probably have to deal with, except, it's being put on him by, death, like his primary client is death. Even just contacting death is sort of an operation in odd supernatural bureaucracy. So it feels a lot like the style of Harry Dresden without kind of trying to steal its voice or anything like that.
Neat. All right.
To contrast that, have you read the Rivers of London series or the Peter Grant series?
I have not read those.
Okay, never mind. It's a similar like urban fantasy, but has more like hard magic and stuff like that. Like sometimes if you use magic, you'll just go have holes in your head.
Oh. That's a dumb price to pay.
Oh,
yeah, this one
head hole problem.
Well, it's not like head. It's more like you get holes in your brain and you start going crazy and then you die. So.
Oh yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of magic. Alec has a couple. He has more like magic tools. He's not a magic user himself. Primarily his sort of supernatural expression is that he's a half ogre, so he has tusks that kind of pop out every once in a while when he gets real pissed off. He's very strong.
So So
He has like a Mjolnir tattoo on one hand that acts like a taser.
What?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. I got one of those.
I mean, we all should.
It's.
I'm not a robot.
Do you just have a taser in your hand, Peter?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Peter,
Yes,
confirm or deny.
I can neither confirm nor deny. My hand taser.
You know, Daniel, this this book sounds wild. You had me at half ogre.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick, I think, for the main character. You know, he is not super heroic or anything like that. He's mostly just trying to get by day to day. And you know, McClellan does a really good job of bringing that sort of human element to a very non-human character to life. I think that's something that he's really good at, especially in the Powder Mage stories. And it's true here too.
I feel like even in like D&D or something like that, I never choose to play as like a half ogre or a half orc even or anything like that. You know what I mean? I always choose some sort of, or I feel like a lot of people always end up like choosing something more like a human or an elf or something more, you know.
No way. I'm always a half-orc barbarian.
Are you really?
I always am. Not always, but
I end up being a halfling trickster.
See, like, yeah, like a halfling or a dwarf or something. I don't know. There's something about like the orc race, I think, that always just like, at least for me, I'm always just like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
I'm a squishy wizard.
A squizzard.
It's definitely a type. Now we know Katie is the smash 'em first, magic 'em later kind of character.
oh, no magic at all. Magic. Puh, spit.
Here's the stick with which I used to crush. Yes.
But is it a magic stick?
It's a crush stick.
With +3 to crushing.
Behold my crush stick. There are many like it, but this one is crushing.
But you can also do the pokey stick where you poke at things.
Ooh, the poke stick.
The stabby stick.
No, pokey stick.
Oh, okay.
That's like your 10-foot pole checking for traps.
That's old school, man. I love it.
I date myself once again. Here's a toast to everyone.
Hey, at least I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. I was looking up stats for whips, and I was like, why is this whip so useless? It only has like D4 damage, but apparently it's 30 feet.
There is that. But I think when you use it, you have to whistle the Indiana Jones theme.
Yep, required.
That's a good homebrew rule.
Yes, that's gonna fit so well into my cells at work setting when my players are cells and they're in a Victorian's body.
Oh, what?
I love everything about what you just said.
I do too, but I don't know what any of it was.
Well, so I mean, Daniel, did you find that like telling a story from the point of view of like a character like this, of like an orc? I mean, you said before they did a very good job of humanizing him, but like, was that? I'm sorry, ogre, not orc. Was that a part of the story, or was it just sort of ignored generally?
His sort of half humanness, half ogreness. It does come up in the story. It's not really a driving force. Mostly his situation is defined by the fact that he is essentially a slave, that he's not necessarily employed so much as forced to work for the sort of repo agency that he's involved with. So, for the most part, he's a very human character until, there are these big action scenes where his non-human nature kind of comes out.
Have you read Sandman Slim?
I have not.
By Richard Kadri. It sounds not, exactly similar, but relatable. It's somebody died and went to hell, where apparently they were used as a pit fighter for demons entertainment. But in order to get him to win, they modified him and improved him, and I think started using him as an assassin or in hell or something. And at some
Seems
point,
reasonable.
Yeah, sure, as you do. And at some point, he came back to Earth, like he came back to life as an undead or something. and then has to solve some kind of apocalyptic mystery on Earth.
Yeah, because that's what happens when you're modified by hell. Then step 2 is solve a mystery.
Step 3, profit. Yeah.
Yep. All the best plans.
Can I solve a mystery?
Please.
She really needs the money.
But you have to go to hell first.
Oh, I don't want to go to hell. It's
No.
hot there. I already
Yeah.
live in the hot place.
Well, the 9th circle of hell is supposed to be frozen, so you can go there.
Yeah, that's Massachusetts.
I will do the 18-hour car drive to Massachusetts. Yay!
Yay.
All right, so Daniel, what was the name of that book again? One last time?
So that was Uncanny Collateral by Brian McClellan.
Fantastic. So, Katie, we're gonna jump to you now. It's finally your turn.
Oh, maybe I should have gone first. I'm just kidding. So I read The Goblin Wood by Hilary Bell. I was actually a little worried at first because it seemed really adult. Because the main character, she's 11 years old when the book starts. And her mom gets murdered for being a hedge witch because the government is a theocracy, and they're like, oh no, if you're not sanctioned by us, then you must be, part of the Dark One's minions. And so they're all persecuted, hunted down. Yeah, it's pretty much like history. Anyway, so McKenna, she meets a goblin named Cogswallop.
That's a
name.
Cogswallop, not Codswallop.
Cogswallop.
Yeah.
Cogswallop?
No, hey now.
It's a PG show, okay? Watch it.
Yeah, there goes our Amazon subscription.
We just got demonetized, all right?
Subscription or sponsorship?
I meant sponsorship. Words are hard.
No, they're actually going to go in and cancel your account, your Amazon account.
Oh no. How will I watch Good Omens?
For real, I need that to live.
All right, so she indebts Cogswallop by saving his life, and there's a huge theme of balances in the book. And it's explained that goblins believe thoroughly that if you owe somebody, you can't be equals. So even if you ask someone to do a favor, then you have to give them something in return. And friends, they can trade just like pine cones or stones, just whatever they have, so that they're still equal. But anyway, it turns out that it wasn't actually super young adult because, there's a 5-year time jump, and McKenna is fighting against the humans for the goblins because they're being pushed out of their lands to the north. So then another character, Tobin, he's a knight who is working for the theocracy, and he's sent to stop the sorceress who's enslaved the goblins. And he goes up there, meets her, and it's kind of cutesy, teenish, but it doesn't have the whole, oh, they're gonna fall in love and give up their plights or whatever to be with each other.
So do they share POV pretty evenly, or is it primarily one character that they?
It's mostly from McKenna's point of view, but it does go into the knight's view.
Do you get like a good view of kind of both sides, I guess, of the...
Yeah, you can see that from McKenna's view, the goblins, they need a place. They helped her. She helps them. The humans, she hates them because they've killed her mother for being a witch. And then from Tobin's point of view, they need to go into where the goblins are living because there's actually some barbarians from the south encroaching on their land and killing and engaging in cannibalism. out.
Oh, jinkies.
Yeah, it got kind of dark a little bit in some places.
What's a little cannibalism between friends?
A lot of cannibalism is that's what it is.
What's between those friends? Yes.
So, you were saying before this book. Were you saying it was sort of young adult or it was adult?
It started as young adult, but then I would say that it's more of a new adult, as I've learned as a category now. So she's like 17, and it engages in more adult themes, I would say, other than young adult themes.
I mean, was there a lot of like gory violence or stuff like that kind of made it?
A lot of penises everywhere. Just penises left, right, center. Penises everywhere.
I think you're describing Game of Thrones.
Just gonna throw out there,
boobs everywhere.
Peter's another name.
I don't want to read Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I just felt that it was more of an adult theme because of
It didn't have like the YA tropes, I guess.
Yeah, like they weren't doing the whole kissy scenes where they're just like so cute and young love. No,
So the plot is not competing with the character.
It's not about their romance. It's about the war that's going on, the fighting, the land grabs that's happening.
It sounds kind of like the book gave you different expectations at the start and then kind of switched themes on you. Was it jarring?
It was not jarring because, like, at the end of chapter 3 is right when the time switch happens, and she was, she's still 11, but she's called General by Cogswallop, and it's like, oh, okay, so she's actually going to be part of this war that's happening. And I was interested in the war, not that she's 11.
Was she 11 before and after the time hop?
No, she turned... it was like a 5-year time jump, and at some point she had turned 12 before the jump, so I guess...
So she's like 17?
Yeah, so she's 17 during the rest of the book.
Got it.
I always find time jumps interesting, when authors choose to use them. I mean, did it ever feel like, you really wished you had seen any of those 5 years?
At points when she was like talking about, oh yeah, I've killed all these humans, it's like, oh, okay, there's a little darker side to you that has not been shown in the book. Interesting to see, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know, we'll have to give it a shot.
Has anyone read Poppy War by R.F. King?
No.
I want to say yes. I feel like I've read.
I guess it's kind of like giving me that. Well, that book didn't start off as have a YA feel, but it is a younger character. And in the beginning, it's kind of like we're in school. Well, I love the school vibe, but then it's just like, oh look, there's a war. War as hell. I guess that's kind of. Did it have that kind of like feel? I guess. If I'm understanding this correctly.
Not really. It wasn't like, picking flowers and all of a sudden you're being stabbed.
So it wasn't
more
abrupt.
like, no, it wasn't abrupt.
Can I ask, like, can I ask, like, at the end, kind of what I asked Nick earlier, like, did it leave you feeling like, oh, that was a fun read, or was it more like, oh boy, war is hell?
I really liked it. Like, I liked the whole book, but of course it ended with a huge cliffhanger, and then I had to read the next 2 books.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Man, man.
You had to read more.
Which was fine.
I feel so bad for you.
but the next two books were definitely in the young adult category because the second one follows the knight's younger brother who's trying to save him, and I don't know, it kind of dragged. Well, they weren't as good as the first book.
Did it have middle book syndrome?
It definitely did. So only write sequels, no trilogies, please and thank you.
We're not in what year? It was like the early 2010s where everything was a trilogy.
Yup.
I want somebody to only write prequels and just keep going backwards.
I like this idea. This sounds brilliant.
That's what I want. Just start at the end and just move your way to the beginning. Like Memento.
Yeah.
I am intrigued by this idea.
How much more time do you guys have? Do you have a lot of free time to keep chit-chatting?
Well,
I have to go hang out with people.
Okay, cool.
Oh no, that's so hard.
It is.
I have to move to my living room and still wear it, but I have to put on pants.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh, right. PSA, if you guys aren't wearing pants before you do stuff, put them on.
And if you need a pair of pants, you can buy them on Amazon Prime.
Yes, Amazon Prime.
free shipping with
They'll
Amazon
be
Prime.
shipped straight up your ankles.
How will it get through the floor?
Jeff Bezos will come to your house and dress you.
It won't be creepy at all.
The money I would pay. You joke, but
I mean, now he's a billionaire, so he's got to do something to entertain us.
Well, he's also newly single.
Oh,
he's not
That's
single.
right.
Yeah.
Was he?
Get out there and meet.
I thought he was cheating on his wife.
I don't know.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure he was
maybe.
cheating on his wife, and that's
Cheating
why
on your wife
know.
is a good path to being single again.
Yeah.
Well, no, I
How
think
we
he's with
lose
that lady now.
sponsorships.
I'm just reporting what the reports reported. All right.
You mean the tabloids?
If the New York
Yes,
Times
that's
is
what
a
people will
tabloid.
come to our fantasy book of the month is for all the hard journalism. Nick has
Nick, our fearless leader.
Hey guys, I'm dependent on you guys here. I don't know why you keep looking at me. I don't know what's going on. I just work here. All right.
Yeah, Rachel's in charge.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We are gonna have all of these book reviews posted online on toomanythoughtsmedia.com, so you can please go check those out, read those reviews, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. We'll be posting these podcasts as videos on YouTube, and go to toomanythoughtsmedia.com for more podcasts and shenanigans. Thank you guys.
You can just send us money.
We did it.
We
Please
did it.
come
We did
look
the
at
first
my
podcast,
suitcase.
right? And we'll be coming back next month for more.
I take checks.
Peter, you can take credit
Peter
cards.
takes checks.
PayPal, money order.
Anything
I don't even
online
think I
for
have the
Peter.
capability to write checks anymore.
Peter has Venmo installed in his hard drive.
It is very much not a robot body.
No,
But-
my Venmo account is external to my chassis.
Oh no, his programming is breaking down. We need to leave.
Yeah.
So, and we'll be back next month with another episode, and I think we'll start doing some themed-based discussions, if you guys are interested.
Theme.
Next month's theme, oranges.
Yeah, we'll figure out what the theme is, and we'll let you guys know. Anyways, so yeah, check us out online, and look forward to the next podcast, and otherwise, keep reading. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.